Hello, dear friends of Shadow to Self. This is Acharya Shunya again here. And I am so excited about the guest who's joining us today. We have none other but the beautiful Tracee Stanley. Thank you, Tracee.
Thank you so much for having me, Acharya. So happy to be here.
It's my honor. It's such a treat to sit with you. Tracee Stanley is the author of best-selling book Radiant Rest, Yoga Nidra for deep relaxation and awakened clarity, and her soon to be released book, The Luminous Self, Sacred Yogic Practices and Rituals to Remember Who You Are. In fact, it's coming out in October of 2023, and this is October of 2023 when we're recording this. Is it out now already, Tracee?
No, it comes out on October 10th. So we're recording this on October 6th. So very soon it'll be here.
Probably by the time our listeners and our viewers receive this particular session, it may already be out making waves by
Mm.
Shambhala Publication. This book, which I can hold up and just share with you, is a beauty inside and out. Its golden cover is really symbolic of the golden wisdom that is contained here. Tracee is the founder of Empowered Life Circle, a sacred community and a portal of practices, rituals, and tantric teachings inspired by more than 20 years of study in Sri Vidya Tantra and the teachings of the Himalayan masters. As a post lineage teacher, Tracee is devoted to sharing the wisdom of Yoga Nidra, rest, meditation, and self inquiry and nature as a teacher and ancestor reverence, which is her path. Tracee is gifted in illuminating the magic and power found in liminal space and weaving devotion and practice into daily life. And we're going to sit down with Tracee. She's here, she is radiant, and talk all about this book, The Luminous Self, Sacred Yogic Practices and Rituals to Remember Who You Are. Wow. Wow. First of all, thank you, Tracee.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction. So appreciated.
Yeah. First off, when I was going through your book, I found such profound weaving of your own journey, which we'll just go into, of how you found that there was a deeper self within you and the breaking of the egg on your head and all that, those beautiful details. And then the weaving of the unrest that is caused when we are not connected with our true luminous self within. And what was significant to me that I wanted to start with was that there are books out there are teachings out there on inner rest, but these books are always talking up to the outer self, the outer personality. And you've taken the effort, which makes me really happy because I'm an Advaita scholar and practitioner of the self, that you took the effort of first telling people which self are we talking about and why this journey is really important for the rest to even make sense, because you can rest the outer being only so long and so far. So tell us about this whole crux of your book, which is, based around the luminous self, the yogic practices, the rituals, and and just the whole wisdom that's unpacked
Mm,
around the luminous self.
Thank you. I feel like the only way that I could offer these philosophies through my own lens of understanding, through my own limited understanding, is really through my experience. And I'm really happy and grateful that for the last almost 3 decades, that I've had the wisdom of so many teachers who have imparted the understanding of some of these concepts from the Yoga Sutras. And so that allowed me to have, I would say, almost like a net to fall into when the discomfort arose. Specifically, I'm talking about the understanding around samskaras and vasanas and how they lead to personality, and how we in this Western culture are very connected to identifying that our personality is who we are. And so, luckily, I did have an opportunity where someone posed a question to me very early in my spiritual journey. I think it was in 2001. The teacher said to me something like, I don't think you've ever tasted your true nature. And it was really the first time that I had heard this term, true nature, directed at me, the personality Tracee. And I immediately went into this inner inquiry that was like, well, wait a second. Have I tasted my true nature? What is my true nature? Who am I? And it just started to lead down this rabbit hole that felt like it was an eternity, but it was a thought that really only lasted for a second or two. And I really identify that moment as the crux of when my journey of practicing yoga and studying yoga went from the outer focus to the inner focus, because I wanted to understand and know what my true nature really was. And so that's kind of what I hope to really illuminate in this book, is that for me, this book is really like a practice manual for life, something that is a reference book that you can go back to time and time again, something that is uh, kind of a storehouse of a lot of sadhana that can be done. And each one of these sadhanas that is in the book, I feel like is a portal to a deeper awakening. They're practices that I have done over many, many years, for a long time, that I've shared with people that I work with. And I've seen how transformative they can be. But the crux of this work is really wanting to get to closer, anyway, to the understanding of who are we really beyond this name and beyond the form.
Beyond this name and beyond the form, indeed. And would you say then that when that teacher, who you write about in the book, mentioned that you have not tasted your true nature, and it began a journey of self-inquiry for you that has that's continuing to evolve and has definitely been behind this book. Would you say that this book can then catapult the readers into that inquiry? Because I feel that in the Vedic tradition that I come from, that sometimes this knowledge is not out there. You have to go to those teachers, hear their words, or read their words, who themselves are in that journey, and they've kind of, I'm not, even if I won't say they're awakened, but if I can say their head is above the trance, they're beginning to question, who am I? And it's almost like it has a domino effect. And when
Mm-hmm.
you hang with them, hear them, or read their words, would you say that it spurs a sleeping seed? It ignites a samskara, the
Yes.
samskara for self-discovery. Talk
Y-
about samskaras to us at
yeah.
this point, because some matchstick was set off.
Yeah.
That teacher may not even know what they did when they said that to you. But you were clearly walking around with very ready fuel, ready to burst into, you know, big flames of awareness. So does I feel like your book leads one along that path, and talk to us about this samskara for awakening that we may be
Mm,
carrying within us.
Thank you so much. I just love this question. And first of all, I love the phrase that you just said about having your head above the trance. This is so important because this is my offering. This is exactly what my offering is the hope that with one of these practices or even just one of reading one of the stories that it does awaken something in you. And we can think about these samskaras. My understanding of the samskaras are that the samskaras are impressions or imprints, and that we're constantly receiving imprints and samskaras, and we're constantly filing them away as good, bad, and neutral. And the accumulation of those samskaras creates this coloring,
Yeah.
and we can think about it as a coloring over a windscreen of our car or even the coloring over my glasses. And that eventually, if I'm just looking through this coloring, I'm not seeing the reality. I'm seeing the coloring and I'm reacting to that coloring and I'm responding to that coloring. And if I continue to respond and react to that coloring time and time again, and it's unquestioned because I feel like it's reality, then that becomes habitual. I create habits, create ways of being, I create all kinds of limiting beliefs and beliefs based on the coloring. And if that coloring stays on for too long, it becomes concretized. And that concretization becomes personality. And then I identify with that personality as who I am. And sometimes things happen in life where the glasses get knocked off, right? Or the windshield gets broken. And then all of a sudden we're like, whoa, I see things completely differently. And so the way that I understand it is that sometimes when we have an insight or an epiphany in our practice and our meditation and our yoga, even in our chanting practice, that it's almost like a sliver of space has been cleared on the windscreen for us to see clearly just for a moment. And that's how we receive an insight. That's how we receive clarity. And because we know that we're always receiving these samskaras, they're always happening. There is a possibility because samskaras are not all bad, right? They're good, bad, or neutral, that we can choose to create the space to first of all clear some of the samskaras with our practice and create good samskaras that are life affirming. And so what I hear you asking and I'm responding to is that the reading of this book, and I would say the reading of any book that is written by someone who has been steeped in practice for a long time and has even just one or two things to share can be that samskara that creates the samskara that wants to be awakened, that is calling for you to be awakened. And I think that that is also the beauty of a devoted practice, a devoted sadhana that's consistent. It continually now creates the habit, the good habit of turning inward to seek and to allow for the revealing that we are already whole, that we are already worthy, that we are already luminous.
These are such beautiful words, and I'm sure that followers of the Shadow to Self podcast are just bathing in that reassurance. And as you were speaking, this image was coming up of a tree that's barren or maybe has a lot of thorns and no shade to offer, and a tree that is shady, self sufficient, and
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of shade and fruit to offer. So, this world is a mall of samskaras, the good, bad, and the neutral. And books like The Luminous Self and books by anyone who's devoted in practice is sincerely walking that path. Their books, their teachings offer us really positive samskaras, surely. And I think you're very right. And I want to endorse that and highlight that doing work at the samskara level and proactively choosing those inputs that are going to do their work at a subtle level. It's not a big song and dance, dramatic Hollywood, Bollywood sequence. It just happens subtly as you're reading paragraphs, as you're contemplating quietly, as you're practicing some of the sadhanas that you have mentioned here. It just happens on its own. The canvas of our chitta or our heart gradually changes from these morbid, thorny samskaras into these soft, harmonious ones, and down the road, even self actualized and self realized ones. We
Mm,
can't control that journey, but we can make a choice. And
mm,
the choice can be to choose the samskaras that take us back home, would you say? Because I
mm,
want to bring up this whole concept, which is really big in my work too, and my book, Sovereign Self, which is similar to the title of your book, The Luminous Self, that it's not the learning of a new self, but
mm.
it's the remembering
That's right.
of the self, like the windshield that breaks and you can see through. So, talk about that, this remembering that happened, and maybe this is a great time to talk about the egg ritual that you
Mm,
did for yourself. And I think that's really important that you ritualized your
mm.
own journey. And that's worth pausing and thinking about.
Yeah, this word remembering, it's so important because I really feel like the overculture wants us to feel like everything that we need is outside of us. It's all external. Your worthiness, your beauty, your glow, your knowing, it's all out here. And if you just turn your face out here and start reaching for all the things, that's where you'll find it. And that distraction, that level of distraction, causes us to be in a forgetting. It causes us to be in a collective amnesia of who we really are. And I think that what I have learned is that practices, especially practices like yoga nidra and meditation and yoga of all the eight limbs, is a practice of smriti. It's a practice of memory and retention. And I remember the first time I ever heard the word smarana, um, it was like, oh, this idea of remembrance. And then digging a little bit deeper into the etymologies of the words, it was like smriti is more than just the memory or the retention of being able to, remember a lecture or remember how to do a sadhana. It is the remembrance of the true self. And that to me is why we're practicing. So this ritual that you talk about with the egg, I had a bullying incident when I was very young, that involves an egg, and you'll have to read the the book to find out what happened. But I was asking myself one day, I realized there was a big event happening, and I was at the center of this event, and I found myself wanting to hide in the
Mm.
corner. And I realized I was like, every time there's like an event or a party or a celebration, I'm always the one that's in the corner. I don't want to be seen. And this is a moment where success is happening. And when I decided in that moment, because I had been given, luckily, this practice of vichara, this practice of self inquiry, of deliberating on something until you arrive at the source or you arrive at the cause of it, I started to trace backwards in time, thinking about all of the times in which I had felt like I needed to hide when I was successful. And I came back to this moment from when I was really young. And at that moment, something downloaded in me that said, you need to create a ritual. You need to create your own transition in this moment because this is a samskara that needs to be rewritten. And so I feel like my yoga nidra practice was really a portal into this understanding that time and space are not concrete. And I brought myself into this space of traveling back in time to the very moment when this thing happened. And instead of allowing it to be an experience of humiliation and disempowerment, I was able to reclaim my power with my words and with my visioning and with my understanding that I now had powers that came from that experience. That even though there were things that were disempowering, there were other things that came from that experience that allowed me to tune into my intuition more deeply, to be a deep listener, to be able to be more compassionate, and to be able to claim those things. And so that ritual was something that I now believe that we really all have a healing ritual inside of us. And it is something that we need to unearth in this lifetime, especially because most of us, and I speak for myself, um, have been disconnected from the rituals of our lineage, the rituals of our ancestors, either because they have been forgotten or because we come from people who have been enslaved or were stolen from their lands or disconnected from their traditions. And so instead of waiting for the transition to happen, instead of waiting for the windshield to break, right, and then to be in crisis mode, it feels like doing our own ritual of healing and reclaiming is us breaking our own windshield and saying, I'm ready right now to see the truth and to be the truth.
I can see car sticker, windshield breakers. I have to say you have a hypnotic way of speaking. It puts you into a state of rest.
Mm,
Thank you. And when I use the word hypnotic, I said it in a very complimentary way because when we hear what is the truth, we can rest deeply, really. And it
mm,
is so true. Ritualizing your own, if I may use the word trauma, or ritualizing your own wound
mm-hmm,
is in a way bringing reverence to that. And I heard so many things as you were speaking, and I wanted to bring them out for our listeners and viewers that in a way what I heard, and confirm to me if I heard this accurately, if this is what you're trying to say, because this is what I took away, was that what happened to you as a child was painful. As a result, you conducted your own journey of inquiry and outer ritual. So your imperative was to bring closure and healing and wellness to that aspect of your being. It's not your
mm,
totality, but it's an aspect that needs your attention and TLC, and we give that. And yet, I heard something really potent, which is a very important message from the entire Vedic yogic tradition, which is that though that suffering came to you uncalled for, unsolicited, unwanted, yet it left you with some gifts, the gifts of empathy, insights, and maybe even an idea about your true resilience.
yeah.
That who you are, that luminous, unbroken self beyond what broke and ruptured. And did I hear you accurately? And would you speak about this aspect that I also find in your book about being okay with what is happening and yet taking care of your not okay parts? There's this juxtapose where you do not take us down the path of being the victim or the aggressor, but there is a third place to be at, which is the observer.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
you kept us there a lot of the times. And that really appealed to me. It's not so much like you use these words,
Right.
but this is what I experienced. So talk
Mm.
about that. Yeah,
Thank you for that. Yes, you heard me clearly.
yeah.
And thank you for reframing in the in such a beautiful way that is also held by the Vedic teachings, because I think that's really beautiful and that's a beautiful gift. So thank you for that. And then I think I would also say that there's um there's a part of me that somehow over time I think of devoted practice became, and I think this happens when we practice, is that that third place awakens, the place of the observer, right? All of those practices of looking into the space of chid akasha, all of those spaces of being the witness, of, maybe the instruction of watching yourself like you're in a movie. I think that when we do those practices, they come to us in the waking state where we can kind of remove ourselves from the flow of distraction and hold ourselves in that place of observation. And so that is something that I was hoping to allow the reader to be the observer in the story, and in the to be the observer in understanding the philosophy, not so much in an only intellectual way, but in a felt sense, where you're not only listening or reading the story, but you may also be remembering your own story as it relates to these philosophies and these concepts and the things that I share in the book. I do think that when we're in that third place, as you said, of being the observer, that is a place of remembering. The observer doesn't forget.
The observer doesn't forget. It does not neglect what needs
Mm,
attention, but it does not forget that it is the medicine.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the observer has the capacity to, because you use the word neglect, the observer has the capacity to know how to tend. And I think that going back to the thread that we just talked about, the ritualization, is that the observer in me knew the exact medicine that was needed to tend that wound. And the wound is the portal to awakening. It's the thing we want to avoid the most, right? We don't want to see it, touch it most of the time. But if we can be with it with compassion, with a lack of judgment, then I think that medicine for the tending is available for us.
Yeah. It's almost like the wound is the place where the the trance is semi-permeable, where
Mm,
the windshield is not so concrete and colored, because it's just painful and raw. And if we are with it in this compassionate place, without needing to make it go away or be perfectly healed, but just be with it, I've noticed that this is where the insights and tremendous growth happens. It's almost like the wound says, I'm too wounded. I'm not going to cooperate with being this fake, I got it together self in the trance. Go away. I'm not
yes.
participating.
Yes.
And if we connect to the wound and listen to it, it takes us probably all the way like Alice in Wonderland. We enter a whole new dimension. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. The semi-permeable.
Yeah. I mean, if we were not wounded, we'll be so fake. I mean, humanity would be really, like all of us would be pretending to be gods. Our wounds are our testimony to our humanity, I think.
I completely agree. And I think that it becomes a source of suffering when we pretend, that there could be a version of the luminous self that has no vulnerable stories in it, right? And it's just giving the philosophy and the practices. But for me, I actually really felt that it was important to be vulnerable, to anchor these practices and these philosophies in real life, because we're living a real life that
Yeah,
ebbs and flows through joy and pain.
that ebbs and flows through joy and pain. Yeah. Yeah, I think the time is up to just preach from the pulpit about philosophies and practices. And I think partly it is because women and spiritual guides of blended genders, non binary genders have stepped forth. I mean, I've had male teachers and I'm all the better for that person. So I'm not speaking about it, but I'm talking about a general okayness amongst non-masculine genders to be all right with not being invincible for a change
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and to
Yes.
be vulnerable is our biological and psychological natural place to go to. So
Mm-hmm.
we could bring more of that into our spiritual teachings and practice more than before we taught our practice.
Yes, I'm receiving that, and I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. I think that
And
some of the flaws that I have seen in some recent teachings in the last 10 years or so is this lack of this feeling that sometimes teachers want you to think they're invincible. And
yeah.
in that invincibility, what it means is that they have all the answers and that you are lost on your path without them. And I don't think that that is the way to healing.
Sometimes there are entire traditions that then impress upon their invincibility.
Yeah.
I was so surprised, Tracee, when you, not surprised because I'm aware of it, but when I go back as an adult woman and I look at some of the passages by Vedic seers who are women who write about, feeling sorry or sad because their lover is not with them. I thought, how come we're not chanting these hymns?
Mm.
How come we're not, we're neglecting to bring out this pain that the
Mm,
women's years in the Vedas could bring out, which we
mm,
find significantly. We also find powerful statements of discovering their sovereign nature, but we also find vulnerable statements. And the coming together is something I find in your work,
mhm,
and that makes me feel more connected to you at at a very human soul level. That, oh
mm.
yeah, a like-minded teacher. So if I have your permission, I wanted to read this beautiful. I have an early copy, folks,
Yes.
so please don't be jealous that I'm holding a book. But this is from chapter 4, titled "Awakening Our Elemental Nature."
Mhm,
And I found this beautiful hymn that you've composed to the Divine Mother, to Mother
mm.
Nature. May I read that then?
Please do. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Dear Mother, please take me in your arms and hold me. Remind me that it is from you that I have come and will return. It helps me to have the courage to lay down and imagine dissolving into the infinite. Then I can truly rest. Please guide my journey with your morning light, stars, and moon. This helps me to remember that I am lit from within. May your sacred waters purify me so I can ride the ebbs and flows of life with discernment and clarity. Your graceful love and abundance is unconditional. Thank you. Your power can be fierce, and this teaches me respect. May I always remember to cherish, honor, and protect you. By Tracee Stanley. I was thinking I should have asked you to read it, and then I thought, I want to read it. It is so beautiful.
I was weeping as you were reading it. It is just such a gift and a blessing to receive that from you. So thank you.
Thank you. The honor is all mine. I was wondering if this is a good time as any for you to just lead our listeners and our viewers on YouTube through a guided contemplation or a practice, or just speak from your heart a blessing, and we shall receive. Yeah.
Thank you. So I invite you to come into a comfortable shape. And as you slowly arrive into that shape of comfort, perhaps you close your eyes or maybe you soften your gaze and you become aware that your body is breathing. And in that awareness, you just allow your attention to follow the cadence of the breath without any judgment or any trying to shape the breath at this moment. Just allowing the breath to be. Perhaps you let your awareness rest at the tip of the nose, at the opening of the nostrils. And you feel yourself, your body, receiving an inhale, noticing how it moves right into the tip of the nose, the opening of the nostrils, and rides across the roof of the nostrils to a place somewhere inside of the lungs where the breath dissolves. Perhaps you notice the gap or the space between the exhale. Just allow yourself to follow the flow of the exhale as it moves outside of the lungs, through the nostrils, and dissolves somewhere outside of the body. Just feel and sense that you are receiving this next breath as a gift. Following the breath, noticing the pauses, and following the out breath, releasing and letting go of this breath with gratitude. And just watch, be with the breath for the next 5 inhales and exhales. Now you can gently begin to shape the breath, allowing the breath to become even, So equal count on the inhale as on the exhale. Maybe if it feels good for you, it's an inhale of 4 counts and an exhale of 4 counts. It can be less or more, whatever feels comfortable for you. And just allow a sense of softening to arrive in the body, sensing that the center of the forehead becomes soft, feeling as though the softness penetrates beyond the center of the forehead into the mind. And you begin to sense that the wrinkles of the mind begin to become smoothed away. The eyes and eyebrows soften, the jaw and the throat soften, shoulders and arms soften. And that equal breath continues in the background. Feel the chest and the solar plexus soften, the belly and the pelvic center soften. Feel both legs and both feet soften. The ankles, knees, hips, heart center, shoulders, both arms soften all the way down to the fingertips. The wrists, elbows, shoulders, throat center. The whole face softens. The center of the forehead softens. Remember the breath. And feel and sense that this breath arrives from source and travels back to source. Just for the next 3 breaths. And now just let your attention rest at the center of the chest, at the spiritual heart center, deep behind the breastbone. Feel as though the next inhale is arriving through the space of the center of the heart, going deeper and deeper and deeper, as though guided by divine intelligence. And allow yourself here to receive the inquiry, listening for the first thing that you sense, see, or feel. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And when you're ready to come back, take your time. You may want to write in your journal or draw just to remember. And as you deepen the breath, when you're ready to come back fully, just begin to briskly rub the hands together to generate some heat. To just remember the power of your own healing force. And place your hand somewhere on your body where you would like to receive a blessing, an anointing, and honoring. And feel and sense that heat, that warmth enters through the space of the skin into the body, radiating out in all directions and even beyond the space of the body as a healing force of love and power and compassion. Thank you so much for the opportunity to offer a practice.
Thank you for facilitating such a profound practice. It's truly a gift. And I'm
Thank you.
sure that the listeners and viewers who participated along are feeling the gratitude and their samskaras are changing in real time.
Mm.
It's unbelievable how time passes every time I chat with you.
Mm.
Tracee, thank you so much. I'm
Thank you.
sure our listeners would love to know more about your work, as in how they can reach you, how they can study with you. So please take a moment to share some pertinent information, including, if possible, your website.
Yeah. I have a couple of Yoga Nidra retreats and trainings that'll happen next year. And I have a portal where I offer monthly practices, but you can find everything on my website, which is Tracee with 2 E's, Stanley.com. That's where the best place is to find it all.
Thank you, Tracee. And by the time you are listening to this conversation or viewing it on YouTube, Tracee's newest book, The Luminous Self, would be out. Let's both hold it up here, right here. Read this book, gift it, and let it reveal your luminous self from within. Thank you, Tracee.
Thank you so much, Acharya. It's been such an honor and a blessing to be with you.
Thank you. You have generously written this book and shared beautiful practices with the world. You've taken forward the yogic wisdom and you have empowered so many human beings across the earth. Thank you. And this is Acharya Shunya. Until next time.